All right, let's get right into it. We're about to unpack a pretty fascinating and, I'll admit, a pretty complex proposal. The big idea here is that the answers to our biggest, most modern problems, well, they might not be in the future. What if they're actually hidden in the wisdom of the past?
I mean, that's a pretty bold question, right? The source material we're digging into today puts forward a theory that claims to do exactly that. So come on, let's explore this and see what this idea is and, where on earth it even comes from.
Okay, so before we can even get to the proposed solution, we have to set the stage. We need to really understand the problems it's trying to solve, because the whole argument is grounded in the very real challenges that we're all facing right now.
We're talking about the economic fallout from the pandemic, what the source here calls the feared lost decade, not to mention the political instability and power crises we see popping up all over. But it also points to something deeper, something more fundamental. Millions of innovators just abandoning their patents and incredible ideas because they can't get funding. And then there's the feeling that the very fabric of our communities is at risk. The stakes, well, they're incredibly high.
So what's the big fix? Well, the source uses a word you'll definitely recognize: blockchain. But, and you really got to pay attention here, this is not the blockchain you're thinking of. Not Bitcoin, not crypto, nope. This is something much, much older.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. On one hand, you've got modern blockchain, the whole crypto world. It's all based on national currencies or digital coins. But this traditional blockchain is completely different. It's built on something called a community coin. And get this, the community itself is the block. The whole system runs on ancient principles of human trust, not just on brand new tech.
So what does that even mean, a community coin? Well, it's not about the cash in your pocket. Think of it more like a value system that represents the collective wealth of a whole group of people. Their skills, their knowledge, their shared creations, all of their IP. It's a huge shift in thinking, really, from just individual riches to shared communal assets.
So you're probably wondering, where did this radical idea even come from? Well, according to the source, it's not a new invention at all. It's a rediscovery, a system that was apparently used for centuries by some very specific historical communities. Let's find out who they were.
The blueprint is credited to these ancient artisan communities, like the Vishwakarma and the Ramgarhia. The source describes them as pre-Vedic groups, which is a really key detail. Why? Because it means their societies were formed before all the rigid class hierarchies were introduced. Their entire world was built around the community, which, according to this theory, made them the perfect pioneers for this kind of collective economy.
And this was their guiding philosophy, just a simple but really profound flip of the modern mindset. The goal wasn't just to pile up wealth for its own sake. The goal was to create a system where value, or money, was just a tool that worked for the good of the entire community. Okay, so this is where things get a little more abstract, but stick with me, it's worth it. The source argues that this whole community system works because it reflects a fundamental pattern that's found in, well, pretty much everything. It's called the harmony of three, or the three streams.
To make this tangible, let's look at an example from the text. Just think about calendars. The source points out how you have these three major systems: the Shaka, the Bikrami, and the Gregorian calendar we use. They all coexist, they all serve different cultural and practical functions, but they form a kind of harmonious trio.
And we see this pattern of three again in banking. The proposal outlines three different streams: the classical bank that we all know, a householder bank for family needs, and a farmer bank for agricultural cycles. See how each one serves a very distinct purpose? But together they create a more resilient, a more complete system.
And this is where the theory takes its biggest leap, from social systems straight into fundamental physics. The source claims this harmony of three pattern is the same one that reflects the search for a theory of everything, or a grand unification theory. So it's presented as a truly universal blueprint, something woven into the very fabric of reality itself, from calendars all the way to cosmology.
So what holds these three streams together? The source proposes a unifying force called Cymatics, which is basically the study of how vibration and frequency can shape the physical world. This quote here is pretty provocative, right? It hints at its supposed power, suggesting it's the missing ingredient not just in physics, but in everything from banking to medicine.
So how does Cymatics actually work in this system? Let's break it down. First, it harmonizes elements and materials. A good way to think about it is like tuning an orchestra, so all the instruments play together perfectly. This harmony then enables some really unconventional transactions. The source poetically calls it banking with light, sound, and elements. A system based on exchanging energy and frequency, not just money. And at its most profound level, the theory claims this is how matter itself is created from the omnidirectional void. It's a huge claim, connecting ancient philosophy right to the frontiers of physics.
Okay, now let's bring it all back home. How do these ancient artisan communities, these three-part patterns, and these theories of vibration solve the 21st century problems we started with?
Their proposal applies this framework pretty much across the board. It suggests solutions for everything from microfinance for kids to unifying different medical systems, and even for resolving political gridlock and voting systems. It's truly presented as a grand, unified theory for, well, everything.
And this chart really ties it all together nicely. The traditional blockchain idea is the tool for building community microfinance. The artisan wisdom provides the social blueprint for how that community should operate, and those deeper, more abstract principles, cymatics and the three streams, are presented as the universal laws of nature that make sure the whole system can work in harmony.
And that leaves us with a final, really thought-provoking question. We're constantly looking forward, right? Searching for the next big thing, the next technological breakthrough. But what if the most radical innovation is actually a rediscovery? Is it possible that a blueprint for a more stable, more equitable, and more harmonious world has been with us all along, just waiting to be understood again?